Come on. Come on, YouTube. Okay. That's ready. Now what about this part? This part seems to be also ready. That's good. I think it's all going. Yes. Seems like it. Good morning, or afternoon, evening, wherever you are. I hope you're doing well. It's Sunday, at least where I am, so it's the Every Other Sunday show. Adjust my microphone here. Got people coming in from all over. Greetings from Cleveland. Let's see here. Texas, Edinburgh, Shropshire, England. I come for Uncle Adam's melodious and soothing voice talking about wargaming on a Sunday, but I stay for the GW angst in the chat box. Well, you know, howdy from Nicaragua, Melbourne, Sydney. Let's see here. Muggy, DC, District of Columbia. Let me see. Isle of Wight, Shawano, Wisconsin. How you doing, Jesse? Wolfsburg, Germany. South of France. Fancy. Rome, New York. Hello from Winneconne. Good times at TMX last weekend. We will be back. Nice. Good to hear it. Yeah, it was a good time. I mean, it was a small. It's always small. It was a good deal smaller this year in comparison to 2019. But it's a rebuilding year. That's what I've been telling people. Sculpting aliens from a rather wet Ontario. It rained a good portion of yesterday. Not a ton, but enough all the time. So that was a bummer. Today it is sunny. So we'll see how it goes. Salt Lake City, how you doing? Mesa, Arizona, Northern Kentucky, Peterborough, Canada, Scotland, Cambridgeshire. It's probably not pronounced that way. Cambridgeshire. It's probably just pronounced Cambridge. That's it seems to take a bunch of the letters out of there in general. Ottawa, Quebec. Or wait, Ottawa and also Quebec City. Those are two different things, but they were right on top of each other in the chat thing. Hungary. No, I'm good. I'm kidding. Hello, how you doing from Hungary? I just had some breakfast though. Italy, Panhandle of Florida, working on 2 WizKids minis, a Pit Fiend, and a Balor or Balor. Is it Balor or Balor? Anyway, for Rain in Hell. Nice, cool. What did I work on yesterday? Let's see. I finished up the bases on the Gloomspite Gits that I've been working on Twitch for. It feels like 1,000 years, but I'm pretty sure it's not been. But yeah, so those guys, I posted a picture on Twitter. If you want to see it, it's not a good picture. It's not like a fancy lighting and background and all that kind of stuff. It was just a picture kind of sitting on my really messy hobby desk, but they are completed. So on Monday, tomorrow night, when I am streaming on Twitch, if you're interested, you can find me right there at 7 p.m. Central Time over at twitch.tv/tabletopminions. Tomorrow I'm going to start working on 2 new models. I'm going to be working on 2 non-Games Workshop models. It will be astounding and possibly a failure, but I'll have a good time painting them, so there'll be that. Hi from Northern Illinois. Hello. Let's see here. Hello from Vegas. Hello from overcast Whitehaven, England. Nice. Let's see here. Moscow. South Carolina. About to go for a bike ride. Nice. I gotta get my bike out of the garage. There's a bunch of stuff in the way, but I should do that. One of the benefits of having a messy garage is that no one will ever steal in or break in and steal your bike, because they'd have to be like, I gotta move all this crap to get at that thing. So that's kind of a good idea, I think, in my opinion. If you want to get stuff not stolen from your garage, have a messy garage. Hello from Minnesota, working on dirty dishes while my printer finishes my 1-page mini Saurians. Nice. What time do you stream on Twitch? I stream on Twitch on Monday nights at 7 p.m. Central Time. Go for 3 hours. And I also stream on Friday mornings at 10 a.m. Central Time. And again, for 3 hours. Currently, that's it. Every once in a while, I stream on a Saturday night. I thought about it last night, but I was actually working on other stuff. And also, I had to get up early for this. So, yeah, but sometimes I stream on Saturday nights and play a video game and have a cocktail and just chat with folks. That is usually got fewer attendees, let's just say that. But it's fine. No minis work for me right now, but just tested a brand new Undertaker from Discraft. Undertaker from Discraft. I threw back. Oh, Disc Golf. Gotcha. Hi from Pyongyang. How you doing? It's not messy. It's the theft deterrent. Exactly. Good lazy morning from the Mitten. How you doing? Good morning from Kansas City. Don't even care about Warcry. I'm here for that great voice. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Also, we don't just talk about Warcry. Like, generally, the Every Other Sunday show is, there's a subject, because I have to make a thumbnail, but very frequently that subject doesn't get, it's not like I'm here to answer all kinds of questions about tabletop wargaming. There's a lot of questions I can't answer that are not about tabletop wargaming, because I don't know. But there you go. Good morning from Albuquerque, working on painting my Talons kill team. Nice. I'm still thinking about doing the kill team for the Phobos Marines. I'm going to do that because I think that'd be cool. That being said, I still also want to try to play a fun game, maybe do a battle report. We will see. I am bad at those. But maybe do a battle report of Traitor Guard versus Death Corps of Krieg. I think that would be sort of fun just because there'd be, a bunch of little tiny guys on the table sort of situation. What's the other thing I'm thinking about doing? Oh, I'm also kicking around, and I've talked about this before. I was like, hey, I've got these Horus Heresy models. I'm not going to play Horus Heresy particularly, but they would be kind of cool maybe in some sort of kill team situation. And a bunch of you folks, I think possibly in the last episode of the Every Other Sunday show, or maybe it was 2 episodes ago, were telling me about this mod from a website called Ossified Mods. Mod is a strange word. It's a free download from Ossified Mods, and it allows you to basically use Horus Heresy folks in the new version of Kill Team. Gives you all the stats. It's very professionally looking, done. I mean, it looks like GW made it, but it's not. I have it on my iPad. Let me. So, like, I don't know, this is probably too bright. But yeah, I mean, it looks like their stuff. I'm getting glare and whatnot. Like they've done a very good job of making it look like a GW product, but it's pretty big, and it allows you to then use, your Horus Heresy folks and stuff like that. So in this version of the game, a Horus Heresy army or kill team is basically 8 models instead of only 6 like you have with most Space Marines. So you get basically 1 leader, you get 1 special weapons person, and then you get 2 small fire teams of 3. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 models. One of those 2 small little warbands, if you want, can also be Terminators. So that's kind of cool too. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm thinking about going down that road. I might make and the thing is that would end up making 2 groups because otherwise no one would play with me. So probably Blood Angels versus Death Guard is my color scheme idea. I need to go through and read some more about the stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Morning from Uperland. Let's see here. Wait, is new Warcry officially announced, or is he just talking about it? I mean, during Warhammer Fest, is that what they call it? Warhammer Fest. They announced there's a new Warcry something. They did not say it's a new edition. There's a new logo, which is kind of important. They kind of do that. They did it with Kill Team, but there is a new logo that they showed off. Also, they're moving it from the 8 points to Gur or whatever, which is like the land of beasts or jungle stuff, or I don't know exactly. I don't know a lot about the Age of Sigmar lore. But yeah, so, and then they showed off those guys with the bull hats on top of their other hats. You can find that stuff on Warhammer Community. So they've already started talking about something new is coming. They've been showing off some other cool figures. They showed off that really cool, like, centaur. He's like a horse, but then he's got 4 arms instead of just 2. And that's a super cool model, but that's coming out for Warcry. So something is happening. We don't know if it's a new edition. We don't know if it is what I'm hoping for. Let's just get right to it, shall we? What I'm hoping for is that they're going to do the thing that they do now these days in Necromunda. So Necromunda came out in 2017. Pretty much all the rest of the big games, 40K, Age of Sigmar, Kill Team, Warcry. Well, we don't know about Warcry yet because it only first came out in 2019. But every other one of those games has been on a 3-year cycle. Something new comes out every 3 years, right? But Necromunda's been out since 2017 and hasn't had a new edition. They keep coming out with these boxes and they keep adding stuff to it. Most recently, Ash Wastes. Ash Wastes came out, but Ash Waste does not make any of your old gangs invalid, like Kill Team 21 did to Kill Team. It just, so it got rid of, excuse me, got rid of all your ability to do whatever with your older people, and it's all starting over from scratch. Necromunda adds new things, new features, new this, new that, whatever, but they don't get rid of the old stuff. And I'm hoping that that's what they're going to do with Warcry. I'm hoping that it does not change stats, it does not invalidate lists, it doesn't do anything like that. I would just like to see them adding some new stuff. Now, the trick is to not add too much new stuff, because then the game gets more thick, more kludgy, and I don't think it needs that either. But it would be nice to put in, I think it would be a smart move on their point to, basically make it so that there's new things that you can add. The question then is that if you decide, okay, but I don't want to buy that new box, you still got to probably buy the new core book because it's going to have new rules, but not change the old rules. You know what I mean? Like right now, there's a bunch of things you can do in that game that you don't have much of a counter to, right? The fact that when you build a list, it is always a better idea to have more models than fewer models. You build a list of 5 Stormcast, and they're very tough. They will very frequently get their butts kicked by 12 rats, by 12 Plague Monks, because the Plague Monks, it's not even so much about them getting destroyed. It's about the fact that the Plague Monks can control the board so much better because there's just so many more of them, that kind of thing. So that would be some sort of rule, and I don't have a great idea, but some sort of rule to help with that, I think would be a good idea. Really long-range weapons, like some of the stuff the Caradon Overlords have, I don't want to take that away from them particularly. I don't want to say, okay, your Caradon Overlord lists are invalid. I just want there to be some sort of better defense against getting shot off the board. Like there's little things that you do right now. If you want to win in Warcry, there are very specific things you can do that are very difficult to counter. And I would like to see the rules add on some things to make countering those things a little bit easier so that everybody's kind of more on an even playing field. But again, I don't want it to be like, oh, all these models that I've been painting for quite some time. I don't want to see the Tome of Champions 2021 be useless already. I don't want to see any of the 4, whatever those books are, the Grand Alliance books be useless already. That's my main concern. So there's that. Really loving the new guard models. Been looking for something like this for a while on third-party sites. Nice. Hey, Gaddis Gaming, how you doing? How many wargamers does it take to change a light bulb? 1 to do it, 6 to let him know how much better the last bulb was. It's true. It's true. From what I'm hearing, it's finally time for me to crack open my Catacombs box and my Red Harvest box. Vince gave me a nice present when he came to visit for TMX. He brought me some terrain from the original Warcry box, some pieces he hadn't used, and then he also brought me, I think, most of the terrain from the Red Harvest box too. So there's that. And then yesterday, I was at my local shop, and they had the Dark Oath Savagers in there, which are the kind of Conan the Barbarian looking guys who came in the Red Harvest box. And I never got the Red Harvest box, but now I have the Dark Oath Savagers, which I'm looking forward to putting together and all that kind of stuff and painting. But yeah, so that's cool. But I did not get the Red Harvest box. I hope you're right. I would like to see a game of Warcry continue to evolve. As much as I like the new Kill Team, the end of 2018 felt a loss in the line. Yeah, to some degree, it just really it ripped off this Band-Aid, and you were like, wow, that's a bummer. Just wanted to say thank you. After 10 years of basement rules made back in high school, we finally have finished our World War II rule set being printed on demand. Your Reign and Hell journey helped tons. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad to hear it. I think that these days, if you're interested in game design, you are to some degree, tabletop game design, you are in a bit of a golden age as far as options because of places like Wargame Vault, Drive-Thru RPG, the Game Crafter, And those are the main that I can think of. But yeah, I mean, it's easier than ever to be able to design a game and get it out to people all over the world relatively easily. Now, if you're like, yeah, but the game's got to come in a box that's like 4 foot by 3 foot, and it has to have plastic parts, and it's got to have custom dice, and it's got to, well, then no, that's still real hard to do, as it turns out. That's why the big companies do that. That's why you see Fantasy Flight putting custom dice and everything, because then you have to buy their dice. You know, you can't just be like, yeah, but I like these cool yellow dice better, or I like these cool glittery red dice instead. No, you got to use these with the special symbols on them because of reasons. So, you know, but if you're interested in making a game and you expect people to have their own tape measure already and not like one with weird symbols on it, and use their own dice already and not ones with weird symbols on them, now's a great time to be able to do that. Now, it's hard to get noticed in the market because there's so much, admittedly, but you can do it. You can get out there and make the game. The hard part then, of course, is getting people to see it and get marketing and things like that. But as long as you're not like, I'm quitting my job and I'm making my own miniature game, well, that's not a good idea. I wouldn't do that. But, you know, if you want to make your own miniature game and then kind of go from there and sort of iterate and design and then make another one maybe or whatever, stuff like that, that part's actually... and actually have people be able to find it is actually, it's the easiest time ever to do that, probably, in the world. So, do you play any games in 15mm? I don't, well, I mean, I played, for a hot minute, I played Flames of War. I don't like that size much for me, personally. I don't know what it is. I just don't like painting the models that size. Can you imagine if they pull off something where the cards and alliance books still work? I mean, that's what I want them to do. I sure hope that they do. That would be great. Does anyone use the Army Painter Air Triad paints? I'm interested in wondering if they need a shade. Ooh, I use them all the time. They are my favorite airbrush paints right now. Those Army Painter Triad paints are awesome. You just dip them like doop straight out of the bottle. You don't have to like thin them or anything like that. And then they come in triads. They come in sets of 3 basically as far as colors. So you've got a red shade or whatever, red color. And then you've got like what they call a base and then a mid and then a highlight or a high. And so they are all, each of those 3 colors is hue matched, meaning that it's not like this color is a bluishy red and this one's more of a warmer redishy, orangey red. They're all the same color red. It's just this one is darker than this one, and then this one is darker than that one. So when you want to do highlights and shading and stuff like that, you start out with the dark color, you spray, and then you basically do a zenithal highlight from above with the lighter color, one of the lighter colors, whether you want to go to the next step up or 2 steps up, depending on how much of a contrast you're looking for. They work great. I use them on my Gloomspite Gits. Well, mainly just on the squigs. There's the 2 squigs I used them on because I wanted them to be red squigs, and I did most of that skin work just in the airbrush booth, like before I decided to even start painting on them, and all I had to do was just do detail stuff and everything like that. So yeah, I'm very happy with those paints. They're great. Let's see here. I played Kill Team 2.0, but not enough to it down like you did for Warcry. I do like the no points team setup though. I don't know yet. I'm still not sure. I mean, it simplifies things somewhat, but yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know. We'll see. 52 miniatures. How you doing? Make some sort of Overwatch rule. Could you make beasts mandatory to offset hordes? I don't know. That's a good question. I've been learning to play X-Wing. I was a little disappointed, but not surprised to see the attitude towards updates and changes that are just as salty as every other war game. I don't... If a game is competitive, has a competitive scene, and there's tournaments and events, and people spend money on fancy banners and posters and matching t-shirts and the whole deal, and you go that far on it, I understand why you have to be making updates, because especially when you make a very huge in-depth game, it's very difficult as a designer to figure out every last little possible exploit. But people will figure it out when enough people are like, oh, if you do this and this and this, they didn't, they didn't figure out the math, and now this breaks the game. People will do that because that's the way competitive games are played. So I understand why competitive games get these constant updates and stuff. And I also understand why people get salty about it, because either they liked it the way it was because they were winning all the time because they'd found the exploit, or they just had a list that now it's all screwed up for whatever reason because things have changed. I get that too. When you play games that are not competitive like that, then I don't understand why you would make so many updates. Like if you find a glaring issue, we had some issues. We had to put out an FAQ for Rain in Hell because there was like a couple of misspellings and there was a thing missed and stuff like that, whatever. But you do that and then you're like, okay, we're good. But we had people being like, so when's the next update coming out? And we're like, it's done. The game is done. Like, and they're like, oh, so it's dead now? And we're like, no, you can still buy it. You can still buy it a year later. People are still buying it. Someone bought a couple of copies, I think, I don't know, like this morning while I was taking a shower. So not a couple of copies, but like I think there was maybe one person, I think someone bought the one in the expansion. And the only reason we made the expansion is because we did not add solo and co-op to the first game, though we probably should have. So we made this add-on you could get, pay what you want. But the next game we're working on, which will be coming out in late July, God willing and the creek don't rise, that's going to have solo and co-op built in. So we don't see ourselves doing an expansion. I understand why people get salty about add-ons and expansions and all that kind of stuff, because it's a capitalist thing. You're like, well, we got to keep making money. Well, sure you do, especially when you're as huge of a company as somebody like Games Workshop. You're a multi-billion-dollar company. You can't just be like, put out a game and be like, well, there you go, it's cool, we're going to start working on another game now. But when you're small, you can do that. And I think you should. I think instead of just being like, we designed this one game and we're just going to ride those coattails, make another game. Because here's the thing, you may have made a game that a bunch of people like, but there are also some people that are like, I don't like that type of game. And so if you make a different type of game, then people will be like, oh, that's the type of game I like. And then they're going to hop on that. And then you're getting a wider audience. These are all my opinions, obviously, but there you go. Someone said that I'm not in focus. I should be in focus. I look in focus on my screen. And I don't have the autofocus turned on, because sometimes otherwise if I move or if the glasses give a glare, it'll be like, but it's not. Yeah, I focus it and then I turn the manual focus on so it doesn't wiggle around. Thanks for answering the Army Painter Triad question. On the priming front, do you just do a straight black-white or do you use zenithal? Oh, yeah, I almost always zenithal. Depends on the colors. I generally use Monument Hobbies primer. I use like black as a base usually, but sometimes I use if I want a slightly warmer model, I will use a color called black brown, also from Monument Hobbies, one of their primers. And then I usually use their white from above, unless there's like some other base color, like with those squigs. I primed them black brown, and then I went and hit them from above with the kind of dark red triad at the base, I think they called it. And then I used the mid as the highlight, the extreme highlight, just like on the top of, like, let's say my head was a squig. There would be like legs coming out here, and this would be a bigger mouth. But I would hit like the top part here only, not much else. You know what I mean? So yeah. Morning, Uncle Adam. Played my first ever game of Warhammer Kill Team last week, and I think I'm hooked. Painted up some novitiates, and now just finishing up some Pathfinders. Going to start Veteran Guardsman this week. Nice. Yeah, I mean, again, I don't think the rules are bad, partially because they're based off of Warcry, so there's that. I don't think the rules themselves are bad. There's some choices that they made. The stupid ruler. The main issue I had with Kill Team was the fact that they were like, oh, hey, it invalidates all your old stuff, and here's this $50 book that is going to give you new lists, but they're basically all really super boring. If you want interesting, what they call bespoke lists, you have to wait till the new books come, or the new boxes come out, or the next White Dwarf will sneak some stuff in. Yeah, that's my main issue with the game. New game in July. Can't have enough Rain in Hell as it is. Well, this will be a very different game. So yeah, Rain in Hell is been out for a little over a year now. It's sold really well, and we've been really happy with it. The new game is going to be sci-fi based. I've been talking about this on Twitch a lot. New game is going to be sci-fi, and like I said, it's going to have the ability to play adversarial, against people like a normal game, but it's also going to have co-op and solo play built in as well. It's again going to be model agnostic, so use whatever kind of sci-fi models you want. That's about as much as we're prepared right now to release as far as the information. The artwork is starting to come in from the artist that we're working with. He is blowing it out of the park. Just super, super, super good. I think you folks are going to be really amazed by the artwork. We're already amazed by the artwork. So that's really cool. I'm working on the layout right now. Not right now because I'm doing this. But yeah, layout has started because we've already gone through the first proofreader. Once we get the layout done, we're going to send it through another proofreader, from what I understand. And because we really don't want to have to make a adjustment to it like we did at the last game, which then screwed up our print schedule and stuff like that. So we're going to get all that stuff. And yeah, the plan right now is to hopefully have it out before the end, I think right towards the end of July. So that's the plan. Speaking of making games, I got the software you recommended, looking up artists for commission this week, still playing, they're still playtesting, but thanks to the advice. Absolutely, absolutely. Once you start making games, it becomes addictive. I have 3 different games in my project pile right now. Yes, I suppose you do, Nick. Absolutely. Nick Evans makes Planet 28 and this game that I have actually within arm's reach, Brutal Quest. New edition of Planet 28 is coming out soonish. There was a Kickstarter that was successful. It's a sci-fi kind of, model agnostic, little tiny game. The new edition is basically taking, like, from what I understand, the new edition is the base rules plus several of the expansions all in one book now. So it's not like changing a bunch of stuff necessarily. It's just kind of compiling things and whatnot. But if you still want to buy the current game, you can go out onto Wargame Vault and find it there. So absolutely. But yeah, no, there's always, like, we've got, let's see. So this next game is sci-fi. We've got at least 2 or 3 more ideas because we're planning on doing a game a year, already like in the hopper, as it were. So we kind of know where we're going to some degree. Things may change a little bit. We may decide to move this one and then put this one in front of it or that kind of thing. But yeah, we already know, like I said, this game is done and in process of being laid out. And next game, we already know the subject matter and have some general ideas, and we will probably start working on it. Heck, maybe even starting in September or even August after we launch. Maybe we'll give ourselves like a good month off and then start working on it in September. We'll see how it goes. I don't know yet. Who hasn't wished their head was a squig? That's a good question. I think a squig with hair, though. It'd be sort of funny. Anyway. I don't know if it's available knowledge yet, but is the new game miniature agnostic as well? Yes. Yeah. We don't see ourselves making a game that's not miniature agnostic. There are plenty of awesome miniatures out there, and there are more and more awesome miniatures every single day. I haven't talked about the robot squirrel conundrum in a while, but I'll reference it here. If you make a game that is about robot squirrels fighting against each other, you probably are going to have to make models for that, miniatures for it, because there's not a lot of robot squirrel miniatures out there. But if you make a game about demons fighting each other, there's plenty of demons out there. There's actual demon models. There's any D&D monster can be a demon as long as you believe in yourself. I mean, there's lots of things that you can do to make those things. Make a sci-fi game. There's lots of sci-fi models out there. You know what I mean? So if you design something, a lot of people are like, but I want to make my own miniatures. Okay, cool. That's a giant hassle, like a giant hassle. Even if you're going to just do STLs, unless you can sculpt yourself, and even if you can sculpt yourself, it also takes an incredible amount of time to make that many miniatures. So in our mind, especially as indie developers and designers, miniature agnostic is awesome because then people can use miniatures they already have, miniatures they always wanted to use but didn't play that game, but now they can use them, or whatever. 3D printed stuff, it just seems like a super smart idea. So for us, that's always going to be the case. Now, will we at some point maybe make an STL that's specific for a game but not required? Potentially. We've talked about, like, if there was like some sort of special thing and we found a designer who was interested in working with us, which is kind of hard these days, to be honest with you, because so many 3D designers are doing their own Patreon thing or whatever, and they're great. They're doing awesome. They don't need any freelance work and having to work with, jerk art directors like this guy. So yeah, I mean, but there's a possibility we may do that at some point. We've talked about maybe special tokens, but again, they wouldn't be required. They would be like a fancy add-on. There's plenty of people who love Like they like the game and they paint their miniatures, but they love like a little acrylic tokens and this and that and other stuff. And there's other people that are like, whatever, I wrote it on a piece of paper. I can or I used pennies. It's fine too. Nothing wrong with that. But there are people out there who do like the fancy game aids that just make things a little bit fancier. And that's cool. So if we may make some things like that too, but again, they would all be optional. Yeah. Old West with zombie aliens. Interesting. I'm interested in giving Lunar a try from Blacksite Studios. Some people are calling it a micro skirmish. It is on a pretty small board. I like games that are kind of on a 2 foot by 2 foot. I think that's a cool idea. Do you think that's a new category in the making? I don't know. I mean, like, what am I trying to... well, I mean, Forbidden Psalm by... it's based off of Morkborg, and now there's also Forbidden Psalm: The Last War, which is kind of weird World War I. Those both of those were played on a 2 foot by 2 foot board. So yeah, I think the concept, like, I don't know if we'll ever make a 2 foot by 2 foot. We might. Right now we're aiming a little bit. Generally, these days we're actually, well, obviously Rain in Hell, and I think the next game we're aiming towards, and again, it's your game. You can play it on whatever size board you want. We've been aiming towards the basically Kill Team / Warcry size, 22 by 30, just because we have an assumption that either A, people already have that, or B, they're able to find like a mat or a board somewhere, because lots of companies that sell the gaming mats are like, well, we got to make them at that size too, because, you know, Games Workshop is using it. But if you wanted to run 3 by 3 or even 2 by 2, you could probably do it. But that's the suggested size that we're using. So. I'm going to make GRW work in 15 millimeters. I don't know what GRW is. Your game actually got me into 3D printing because I didn't like the GW Demons, but I loved Lord of the Print Demons. Lord of the Print Demons are awesome. Yeah, we used a bunch of those actually from my mini factory. Yeah, definitely. Wouldn't a squig with hair be a square? Whoa. I can't tell if it's a dad joke or not, but I'm going to say maybe. Let's see here. Still want the Robot Squirrel game. So the noob painter, who was at TMX last week and is a longtime Uncle Adam's Irregulars, one of the $4 Patreon folks, he, I think actually during an Every Other Sunday show, whipped up a quick sculpt of a robot squirrel, and I forgot to talk to him. I should talk to him about it and see if we can put it out there for people if they want to print it. I'd like to see him painted is what I'd like to see. I think you should put it up on my mini factory. That's what I think. Love Warcry. Rules are simple. My kids, 7, 14, and 16 can play easily. Yeah, I just, you know, and I know that there are people out there that are like, well, I like my games to be more crunchy. I like my games to be more detailed and stuff like that. I like game design that mimics action to some degree. You know what I mean? Like when you play a game like Bolt Action, World War II game, or even Conflict 47, which is like weird World War II, but it's based off the same rules as Bolt Action. For you reach into the dice bag, you've got 7 units left in your army, your opponent has 6. So now you've got 7 dice in the bag, your opponent has 6. They're all the same size, but theirs are their color and ours are mine or my color. You reach into the bag and you pull out a die. Oh, it's one of yours. You get to activate, and you activate a unit, da-da-da-da. Okay, reach in the bag. Oh, you get to do it again. The whole concept of reaching into the bag, pulling out the die, is to mimic, to some degree, the constant, like minute by minute, second by second reaction that you might have to have in a World War II battlefield because of the smoke and the fog of war and the explosions, all that kind of stuff. So that is not just like, well, it's just cooler than you go, I go. It actually has a reason behind it. Same thing with Rain in Hell. The reason that we make it so that every turn you're rolling these dice, these 12-siders, and then you're kind of organizing them, and now you know who the order is going to go, but you don't know necessarily which model is going to go. You just know that you get to go twice, then I'm going to go 3 times, then you're going to go, then I'm going to go, and then you're going to go twice again, or whatever, because you can see the order. It's knowable every turn, but every turn is different. So you can't plan way ahead, but you can at least look around the battlefield as the fight's going on and be like, things are going south over there. You know what I mean? And knowing what you can do about it. So that's kind of giving that idea. The concept behind Warcry being somewhat stripped down is because it is just about punching people in the face or stabbing them or whatever. You know, like it's, yeah, sure, there's some gunfire in it. There's some, like, you know, crossbows here and there and whatever, but it is a stripped down, you know, this is the way it goes. Whereas something like the new Kill Team has got equipment that you can carry and special tactics and all that kind of stuff, because it's a more technological kind of like, oh, I got 17 pouches on my, you know, there must be stuff in these pouches. What's in all these pouches? Oh, it's equipment. Okay, I carry all this equipment and I've got these special tactical things where I can do this thing and call in a strike and, you know, all that jazz. So it's a very different type of game, and the rules kind of mimic that, and it makes sense. So that's one of the reasons why I like Warcry, just because for me it's simpler. Like, I'm going to be playing a game with Sam later on this afternoon, and we just like the fact that the game can go very quickly, and it's just a fun thing to play. But it feels more, I don't want to say visceral, but it sort of, like, it just feels like it's a game that's more about just quick action and decisive movement, and no, that guy died. You know what I mean? Like, it's, as opposed to, like, you know, sitting behind a thing and plink, 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 and that kind of, I don't know. That's being said, I would like some sort of way that we could maybe mitigate getting shot off the board by the Caradon Overlords. Honestly, because I want to make some Caradon Overlords, and I don't want to feel bad about blowing everybody off the board, but that's kind of what they do right now. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Orcs use hair squigs. Thus, a squig with hair would be a squigs with squigs, squigception. Whoa. Lord of the Prince missed an opportunity. Could have been Prince of Darkness. It's not bad. I like it. I like it. I would love to paint a robot squirrel. There you go. Does a sonic cleaner help remove paint from brush ferrules? I've never tried it. Maybe my concern, I mean, maybe it would remove the paint. My concern is it would potentially, depending on how long it was in there, might also remove the glue a little bit that holds the fur. Or the fur. Well, yeah, it's fur, yeah. Holds the bristles inside of the ferrule. That's a good question. I have not tried that, but maybe. I use it on my airbrush all the time. I mean, that's how I store my airbrush, as I've mentioned. There's always Infinity for crunchiness. Ugh. You know, I've tried Infinity 3 times. I've tried demos of Infinity 3 times, and it has never set its hook into me. It's always been weird. It just doesn't make sense to me. Like, there's just, and it's little things. I talked about this a little bit on Friday's video about how, like, rules matter to me. And the rules in this game, I don't think there's an imbalance issue. I think everything's cool that way. It's just like, whenever, like, you're just constantly like, for me at least, I'm like, that's how this works? They're like, yeah, that's how it works. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? And it's, you know, as long as you play within the rules, I'm sure it's fine. But sometimes, to me, also the rules have to kind of make sense. You know what I mean? And for some reason, there's something about, like, rolling low, except when it's armor, then you're rolling high. And to be fair, I have not played the new edition. So I don't know about, I've just never quite gotten the hang of it. I know people like it. I've got friends that play it on and off, but it's never quite struck with me. I'm very interested to see Warcry, which is the name of the new fantasy game that Corvus Belly is coming out. I'm looking forward to checking that out. But we'll see, yeah. I mean, I love the fact that, like, they've got the online army builder thing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, like, they do great work, and their models, though they're still metal in most situations, they are starting to move kind of into that CO-cast plastic, but they've also taken their metal models and stopped making them like 12-bit different pieces, and they're making them like 2 or 3 different pieces, which is always better with metal. But yeah, we'll see how the fantasy game goes. I'm looking forward to it. You ever think of running an online Warcry narrative event? We need more. I haven't. I think my main issue is that I don't have that kind of time, unfortunately. I wish I did, but I have 3 jobs, and yeah. And, you know, the thing is that Games Workshop is a multi-billion-dollar company, and I don't know that it should be up to people like us to run narrative events for their thing. I think that seems like a thing that if they wanted to sell more games, they would do. So I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I'm not against the concept. I mean, I'm totally fine with people like, hey, we're going to have a narrative event that we're going to do ourselves amongst our friends and things like that. You should totally do that. I don't expect people from Games Workshop to come to your club and hold your hand, but a big kind of global thing for something like that, that's their job, I think, honestly. Have you played World of Tanks? Not the tabletop. I played the video game on my Xbox or something like that a long time ago, I think. Xbox 360? PlayStation 4? I know I played it on a console at one point. Good morning, Adam and chat. Good morning from a gloomy San Diego. I didn't think they got gloomy in San Diego. I had no idea. Good morning. I wish Warcry combat regarding hit and damage was more like D&D, but I do think it's great. I like the fact that I'm not constantly rolling for like armor saves. I know some people don't like that. They're like, well, you hit me, now I get to roll to see if I take damage or not. I like the fact that I'm just like, I hit you, take damage. I like, there's something to be said about just stripping that out and just being like, we're going to get through this quicker. And so therefore you kind of fix that of the potential to mitigate the damage by just giving them a certain number more hit points. And so that's why even like a simple like Skaven, like Plague Monk has got like 8 hit points at least, you know what I mean? Can you take them out with one shot? Not usually one shot, but like in one attack. Like you might have, you might do 3 swings when you do your attack, or you might be in, you didn't move this turn, so you get to attack twice or whatever. So there's certainly, I mean, I've had a Plague Monk almost take out a Stormcast, I think. Stormcast, I think, had 20 hit points, and I did 15 damage to him in one turn, because I rolled 3 6s and did 3 crits, and it was 5 points per crit. But I don't think I could have taken him out. Well, technically, yeah. I guess if I hadn't moved, and I did it again, I could have taken, definitely a Plague Monk, if you roll enough crits, could take out a completely fresh as a daisy Stormcast in one turn. You'd have to roll really crazy high. And then his Stormcast friends would make fun of him, for sure, when he got killed by a Plague Monk. But still, I would like a few minis of the mutant rabbits carrying machine guns like they pick in the first edition Gamma World book. There's got to be somebody out there who's made something like that. I'm firmly in the War Thunder camp instead of World of Tanks because I started there and it's too late to play the other one. I think I've played War Thunder more frequently, but I haven't played that in a long time either. I like the super stripped down nature of Warcry, although I gotta say sometimes it's about who can roll the most 6s. I mean, sometimes, I like the fact also that it is... The current version of Warcry reminds me a little bit more of the first edition, to some degree, first edition Age of Sigmar, which I really liked. I have not liked the next 2 editions since the first. I really liked the first edition because it was a lot more about just like simple placement. There was not too much weird crap going on. The newer versions have added more weird crap, in my opinion. Just me. They can add crunch to the army building, though, or add items or something. Rules are fast and fun. Are we talking about Warcry again? I kind of hope that they don't add relics or stuff like that. I think we could do without that. Part of the reason is just because, like, there's nothing, like, well, I guess they would have to come out with a new, like, character sheet kind of thing. Yeah, I don't know. Think about getting the Crimson Court and a few other models to make a warband. What do you think? I'm doing that myself. I have 2.5 of the 4 built for the Crimson Court. The one guy's holding like that big like axe in front of him, and I think I'm actually going to paint that part separate because it's like right in front of his. So that guy's, like I said, almost built except for the weapon. The main dude is built and the lady is built. I think all I got left is the more kind of feral looking bat guy or whatever. So yeah, I'm going to have those 4 in my list. And then I'm going to fill out the rest with sepulchral guard. So there's going to be a bunch of skeletons. So it's going to basically be skeletons and vampires, which is about as cool as you can get, in my opinion. The other benefit, too, is if I really want to, I could also pull out some of the vampires and throw in my Necromancer, the old school GW Necromancer, which I've had painted for years. So I could throw him in there. A Tomb King, or Tomb... What the heck's his name? White King. The White King with the Tomb Blade or whatever. I got one of those painted. I think I have another one on the sprue if I really wanted to make him... yeah, I've got stuff to do with, definitely with Soulblight Gravelords. I mean, honestly, I could also just grab a bunch of the skeletons I already painted for Cursed City and just throw them in there, but I've always wanted, like, I've never painted the Sepulchral Guard. I've had those models since Shadespire, and I've never painted them though. Sam painted some on the channel, but yeah. So yeah, I think it's a cool thing though. I think a lot of the crunch of Kill Team could be represented by special rules and abilities. I mean, you already have the special rules based off of your rolls. Like when you do that initial initiative roll and you roll the 6 dice and you're looking for doubles and triples and quads to get those special abilities. I like that. I think that's a excuse me. I think that's a smart like initiative kind of scheme. I really like the initiative scheme of Warcry because it makes you think, because you also have this extra like wild die that you can throw in there. So you've thrown 6 dice and you're looking at what you got, and you know that you get to go first if you have more singles than your opponent. And then you're looking at what they rolled and you're looking at what you rolled, and you're like, all right, but if I add this wild die here, I could add it and then I will have more singles, or I could add it here and then have a triple, which I could use later, but then that's going to make it so that he gets to go. And so I really love that. Like, because so frequently initiative is just roll some dice and then there you go. I love the concept of them being like roll the dice and then figure out what you're going to do with them. And then that actually has to do with not only your initiative in going back and forth in the game, but then also it during the rest of that turn, it also, you know, gives you abilities and dictates which special abilities you're going to use and stuff like that. Warcry is super smart that way, I think. If shooting became too powerful, just hypothetically, Warcry should just add some dodge universal abilities or whatever. Yeah, or maybe cover or something like that. Yeah, but dodge would be cool too. I feel like Crisis Protocol is a good balance of speed and crunchiness. I really want to get a demo of that eventually, because I own the starter box and a couple of other models that I got like in a Adepticon swag bag, like back at the beginning of the pandemic. Like there was no Adepticon 2020 and 2021, but in 2020 there's still people had still paid, you know, to go and stuff like that. So they're like, well, we can refund you, or, you know, let us keep the money because it helps the convention hopefully go forward in the future, and then we'll also send you the swag thing. And so then I got like, I think Hulk and Venom, I think, came in my swag box. So that was very nice. But yeah, I haven't actually. I was just talking with the store owner friend yesterday about it, and he said that I don't know. I should probably get into a I should probably try to get into a demo just so I can get the. Because I've watched a battle report, but that's something. It's hard for me sometimes to pull down the right information from a battle report. Like if I understand the game, watching a battle report can help me understand a little bit better. I'll be like, oh, I see what they did there. But when I don't understand the game at all, really, then I'm like, I don't really learn much from a battle report personally. Let's see here. Hello from Argentina. How you doing? They should add damage modifiers to Warcry. I mean, you get to a point where the math starts to get a little bit more than you want, but yeah, I mean, there are some of that. There is some damage modifiers in some of the special abilities, like you're adding, you know, 1 to either your number attacks, or you're adding 1 to damage or whatever and stuff like that. I think depending on special abilities that you might get to use. Dice rolling and re-rolling is a significant speed bump in games, and making it relevant and meaningful is definitely a positive thing. I agree. I absolutely agree. Sepulchral Guard are a fantastic kit, super fun to paint. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm having a hard time reading with just one eye. I hate that Warcry is universally considered stripped down, as it has all the frameworks, except equipment and promotions, to be much deeper while still being very accessible. Warcry can be much more fun. I agree. I think that some people look at it in comparison to other games from Games Workshop and they're like, yeah, but where's all the extra stuff? Where's all the extra things I got to keep track of? I got to, you know, and it's not there. And I think that's the point. And I like that. I know you like Skirmish. Do you have a favorite Old West game? I got to be honest, I've never been super into the Old West. I don't know why. Like Wild West Exodus was like, hey, we're going Wild West, but we're making it weird. And I'm like, well, that's cool, but I just never played it. And now they're owned by somebody else. They're owned by War Cradle, and it's a different game, kind of, or more than kind of. But yeah, it's never. I don't know what it is. I've never really watched a lot of Westerns either, now I can think of it. Tombstone a couple of times, you know. Gotta like Val Kilmer in that. But otherwise, I could do without most of the rest of it. It's never been. I've never played that. Well, I take that back. I never played Red Dead Redemption 2. I might have played the first one, like on the Xbox 360 or something like that. Warcry feels like an excellent base system to do a new version of Inquisitor. Huh. Well, maybe. The only reason I say maybe is because I feel like Warcry is very focused on a lot more hand-to-hand combat, and I feel like Inquisitor, just by reason of it being more sci-fi, would be less so. Sci-fi games, I feel like, usually have a bit more shooting. I don't know why I feel like that way, but I do. Why'd you skip Origins? I can only go to so many things at a time. And also, I had TMX, Tabletop Minions Expo, last weekend, and then if I was to like get done with that and then immediately go to Origins, yeah, it would have been. I'm trying to cut back a little bit anyway. I don't see myself necessarily going to Las Vegas Open anymore. Nothing against those folks; they're great people. But I just don't know if I want to go to Las Vegas, number one. So there's that. I'm glad I didn't go this year because the new, I don't know if they're going to be going there all the time, but this year they were at the Rio instead of at the Bally. And say what you will about the Bally. The Bally is like, it's kind of old and a little run down or whatever. But I've been to the Bally, I don't know, 3 times now for, and the nice thing is that the Paris is also like connected and there's stuff in between and it's great. For the stuff that I heard about from the Rio this year with LVO, I watched a video where they were like, there weren't enough places to eat. Like people were having to call like Grubhub and stuff like that to get food because there was like 3 restaurants open in the entire hotel. And one of them might have been a Starbucks. So yeah, that was troublesome. Anyway, long story short is I'm just not sure about Vegas in general right now as far as being a super spreader event all the time. I don't know. So there's that. Number 2, I'm not a tournament player, so that's also kind of a thing. You know, like that's a big deal, like, obviously, with LVO. So there's that. Origins, again, like I said, I didn't go because it was like basically the next weekend after TMX. And I'm going to Gen Con in beginning of August. So yeah, nothing against the folks at Origins. Warcry is the best game for a kitchen table round with friends which are not in the hobby. Yeah, that's true too. I can see that. Just got here a moment ago. Is there a new edition of Warcry coming out in the near future? I don't see any mention of a new edition online. I mean, during Warhammer Fest, they said, hey, there's a new box coming out, and the new thing has a new logo, and it's taking place in a new location. It's no longer in the 8 points, but it's in Gur. And they showed off some of the new models that'll be coming out for it. So they have not yet said, hey, there's a new box or hey, there's a new edition. But when they change the logo, that's a big indicator. And it's something coming out probably this summer. And I've just had a suspicion for quite some time that there's going to be a new edition this summer. If I had to guess, it would be late July because Warcry, the first Warcry came out in late July. Both kill teams have come out in late July. It seems to be like the time that they want to launch that stuff. But we will see. I'm just kind of saying if they do it, which I have a suspicion they will, things I'd like to see in it. That's kind of the point. But yeah, there's not been an official, absolutely, yes, there's a new edition. But they have said new stuff's coming out. They've showed us some of that stuff during Warhammer Fest. And like I said, they even showed us the new logo and that it's going to be in a new place. And so, yeah, that'll be interesting. They just made Kill Team, but Warcry. I'd be doing both right now. Inquisicry sounds pretty good. That's a fun word to say. Dracula's America and Malifaux are 2 favorite games of mine that happen to be Western style. Yeah, I would say Malifaux's got to get, I guess, a Western thing going on. That's a good point. I guess I did play Malifaux, like 1.5 and 2. I have not played 3, third edition. I own the Dracula's America book, and I think it's a cool concept, but I never played it. Let's see here. My thinking with Warcry Inquisitor is that ranged weapons would just be always in range due to the small board, which I think is what it's mostly what they did with the new kill team, and except for like pistols and stuff like that, and flamethrowers and whatever. But I like that. Adds a real focus on cover terrain. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I think that's a smart plan to make it like, especially range wise, just be like, yeah, you've got a range and you can hit. You know what I mean? My brother-in-law and I play Gaslands games with usually 3 to 4 vehicles each and finish within an hour. Setup takes a few minutes. Excellent game. Yeah. The Rio is off-strip, tons of space, but I could see the issues of lack of amenities and close proximity. Yeah, I mean, I've never been to the Rio before, and I don't. I know that they're planning on doing new. I think they've released, or that you can start buying tickets to the next LVO. So I don't know if they're staying at the Rio. Well, why don't we just look here? Why don't we do that? So, Las Vegas Open. No. Las Vegas Open 2023 will be held January 26th to 29th at the Rio in Las Vegas. Well, there you go. They're going to be there again. So that's just something to keep track of, just in case you're wondering. Now, I have a suspicion things will be a little bit more. Part of the issue is it's not that the Rio doesn't have restaurants. It's just that most of them weren't open in January of this year. You know, which I can understand to some degree. Maybe they'll have more of them open and stuff like that and ready to go next year. Hopefully they will. Let's see here. The only thing near the Rio is the go-karts. That's fun. When will Warhammer Underworlds have its last season? I have no idea. That's a good question. I don't know if they're like dialing it out. I haven't heard anything, but maybe they are. They might be phasing it out. Warhammer Underworlds will only end when it stops selling, so not yet. You're probably not wrong. I was thinking about going to Gen Con this year as it's only 2 hours from Indy. I'm only 2 hours from Indy, but looking online, all the events I'm interested are sold out and our pickup games easy to get. Not particularly. I mean, I guess it depends on what you're looking for. There's like open gaming areas like for board gaming and stuff like that. But if you're like, hey, let's just have a pickup game of 40K or whatever, that's you need terrain and a board and all that jazz and whatnot. And so that's not necessarily what Gen Con's about, in my opinion. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what it's like this year, just because like last year they limited it and they're like 35,000 people. That's it. It'll be interesting to see what this year does. They've already announced that they're doing the masks and they're requiring proof of vax. So there's that. That came out like last week, I think. So we'll see how that all goes. Yeah. To be honest, Origins was a little lackluster this year anyway. I think all conventions have had like a rebuilding year. Like I said, TMX, we were in that situation too. As far as our end of the gaming hobby goes, and now that they gave a chunk of vendor space to GDEX. I don't know what GDEX is. Which is basically a dead zone on the floor. Yeah, I don't know what GDEX is. Does Warcry still use those weird in-between bases, like 28mm round bases? I always thought that was strange, such an unusual base size. I assume you could play it on 32s or 25s. There are some of the forces that are like the specific Warcry forces that do have 28s. I know the Corvus Cabal, that was like, I was putting the models together and I did not realize that there were also 28mm bases in there. I kind of glued some guys on the wrong base size, which sort of sucked. And I have to fix them, and I haven't fixed them, and so they've just been not used. Again, for the normal, if you're going to run with like not Warcry warbands, but regular Age of Sigmar warbands and stuff, then you use the normal ones, which are generally either 25s or 32s. But yeah, they are starting to sneak some 28s in there here and there. I mean, not sneak. They're not doing it to be nefarious. I think it's just, a thing. Uncle Adam, I know you're not a big fan of board games, but have you played any of the games from Milton Bradley like Shogun or Axis and Allies? If so, what's your opinion? I played Axis and Allies a long time ago in college with some friends who played it a lot. Like a lot. And so I'm starting off on like my first turn. I'm like, all right, I'm going to do this and move these guys here and build this stuff. And then these guys who I'm playing with are just like, no. I'm like, what? What do you mean no? And they're like, no, on the first turn as a England, you're supposed to do this and this and this. And I'm like, Yeah, so I mean, it's not for me. I don't have the strategery mind. I think to play it, and I was evidently playing it wrong because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to, and so whatever. Yeah, so it's I've seen Shogun. I've never played it, but Axis and Allies I've played. I got friends who play and love to play it and everything like that, but it's not a game for me. Feels like they're trying to end Underworlds. I mean, they might be. I don't know how the sales are on it anymore. Green Valley Station or Red Rock would likely be better venues. In addition to what's in the casino itself, there are plenty of other food options within easy walking distance. I think the complaint, and it wasn't a huge complaint, but I think the issue was not so much like, oh, there's no place to eat around here within walking distance. It was, I'm there to play a tournament. I have X amount of time, and there's nothing to eat that can, you know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go and like, oh, let's go have a lovely meal at this place that's like, half a mile away. It's like, I got to go find something to eat because I got another round starting in 35 minutes and all of the, everything's got a line of 50 people. That was the thing that I saw in the video. I should be more clear. It wasn't that there weren't places to eat in Vegas, for sure. It's just that when you're given the lunch break in between like round 2 and 3 or whatever, there was no possibility of getting food because everybody else was doing the same, and there are only 3 restaurants. Do people have an issue with 28mm bases? I don't have an issue with them. I just, as I was building my Corvus Cabal, I did not realize there were 3 base sizes in there. I thought there were just 25s and 32s. And plus, in the instructions for building the Corvus Cabal, when they tell you, and in most things to GW, when they say, hey, it should be on a base of this size, they make this tiny little circle in gray, and they put the number in there in white. And if you don't look at it as close as possible, because you're maybe old, to me, it looked like a 25, but it was actually a 28. And then after I was like, well, what's this base for? I'm like, what's going on? And then I'll sit down and I'm like, oh, there's an, oh. So I'd already glued the guy to the wrong size base. So now I have to unglue him, which is, luckily I used CA glue and didn't use plastic glue because otherwise I'd be screwed. CA glue, you can put a little bit, normally I would just take the guy, just pop him off the base. It wouldn't be that hard, but he has tiny little bird legs because he is Corvus Cabal. So he's like standing on stilts or something like that. So I have to get some debonder. I have some. I haven't taken the time yet. When I was building those models, I was actually building them over at Sam's house. This was back in 2019, I think. And me and Sam and Vince were hanging out on Sam's stream on Twitch. This is before I even started Twitch streaming. And I was building those guys while Vince and Sam were painting. And so I was building those Corvus Cabal, and then I just never went beyond that because I'd screwed them up. So I'll eventually go back and circle around and fix them. But I have a suspicion I'll get this Darko Savagers done before I get the Corvus Cabal guys done, honestly. I've still yet never built and painted actual regular Warcry models. I just prefer the Age of Sigmar stuff, you know what I mean? So that's why all my Warcry warbands have all been Age of Sigmar stuff. Recently got a friend back into wargaming with Advanced Song of Blades and Heroes. We're also looking forward to trying Brutal Quest. Love skirmish games. Absolutely, me too. That's but you're doing good work there. GW subscriber email described the new Warcry as an expansion, not a new edition. I mean, they have a tendency to say things wrong sometimes, so I don't know that we can take it completely, Like I said, I'm wondering if they're switching it over to like the Necromunda model. Necromunda has never since 2017 technically had a new edition, but they keep adding things to the rules. And I'm wondering if they're going to do that now with Warcry, which is different than what they obviously did with Kill Team. Kill Team 2018 to 2021, massive change, completely changed everything. Your old lists are all, but if you've been playing Eschers since Necromunda 2017 came out, if you start playing Ash Wastes, you can still play those exact same Eschers. The lists are the same. Everything's still the same. They just keep adding different little things to it. And so maybe they'll do that here, and they're going to reference that as an expansion as opposed to a new edition. That's cool too. Whatever they do to not screw up the stuff that I've already got finished, I'm happy with. So that'd be fine by me. Do you still play Bolt Action? I've never played Bolt Action. I take that back. I played a demo once, but I do not play Bolt Action. I want to play Conflict 47. which is based off of Bolt Action. It's the same company, but it's weird World War II stuff. So there's laser tanks and whatnot. I wish you discussed more of Gaslands. It's my addiction, and I've gotten a whole shop obsessed with it. Best miniature agnostic around. I haven't played it much lately. Plus, also, I've got Car Wars from Steve Jackson Games. Throughout most of college, we played Car Wars on the regular, pretty much every Friday night. So I like Gaslands. It's cool. I like the concepts of it. I like the fact that you can build models, from Hot Wheels or Matchbox cars or whatever. I think that's very cool. But yeah, I haven't really I mean, I've talked about it certainly on the channel, but I don't like make video content about it particularly. Maybe at some point, if I decide to make a video about, building cars and stuff like that, I might do something like that, but we will see. Have you played Relic Blade? I'm thinking about picking up the 2-player starter thing to play with a friend and would like to hear your thoughts if you played it. I have played it virtually, which is to say on Tabletop Simulator, which is a PC program. I played it there with Malev. He's one of the... So, like, the main designer is a guy named Sean Sutter over there at Relic Blade, and Malev paints most of the miniatures, and also is he goes to conventions and gives demos and stuff like that. So I've played a demo with Malev of the new version during the beginning part of the pandemic. But again, like I said, virtually on Tabletop Simulator. Plus, he's in Salt Lake City or whatever, and I'm in Wisconsin. So, but yeah, it's one of those games that I want to get into more. I bought the Kickstarter for 2nd edition and have the stuff. It's just, there's only so much time, but I do definitely want to sit down and paint those miniatures at some point because they're very good miniatures. Is it too late to get Tome of Champions 2020 if there's going to be a new edition? I hope not, but I don't know. I got to be honest with you. I hope not. I hope that they don't. I hope it is just an expansion or whatever. You know what I mean? And not technically a new edition that invalidates all our old stuff. I think that they would be really dumb to do it that way. So I'm suspecting it's not going to be done that way. So Tome of Champions should probably still be good. Lord knows you could also just keep playing the old version if you don't like the new version. If they do make the new version and screw it all up, there's that too. But yeah, we don't know yet, unfortunately, is the answer. I upped all my firstborn Marines to 28mm. In the end, I stopped worrying about what's legal. My minis spend longer on the shelf looking good than on a gaming table, so I go with whatever looks best. Cool. I think the first kill team actually got away from the designers with the expansions and such. Yeah, I mean, that may be the case. The game's been out for just shy of a year at this point, and they've released... So there was the Octarius box at launch, and then they've done now... Chalnath, Nockmund, and there'll be Morok soon. Or did it come out already? Is Morok out? I don't even remember. I think it's out. So you've got that, right? But you'll notice there hasn't been elites, arena, commanders, all that other stuff. So I think they're taking it in a different direction. They are, I don't want to say they're simplifying it, but they kind of are, because so far there hasn't been, oh, well, you want to bring in Terminators, don't you? You want to be able to bring in these cool guys and the commander stuff. I think they also noticed that a lot of people were like, oh, that's cool, I'm not going to play that. You know what I mean? If you went and looked at the people who were playing it at tournaments and stuff like that, you did not see commander tournaments too much. You did not see elite tournaments too much. You saw some people taking bits from elites and saying, okay, that's cool, we'll use that. But I think that they looked at it, saw that people kind of didn't care as much about those add-ons too much. We played elites some. We never played commanders. I loved the concept of commanders. I was like, oh, I want to paint this guy and bring him in and put him in my army. But when you'd actually look down at how much, everything that had to change and all that kind of stuff, it was kind of like, nah, I don't know. So I think that's the case. I think honestly, they're like, let's just make the base game and just keep cranking out stuff for it. But it's a slow drip, which is why once in a while we get a new bespoke list in White Dwarf. A new box every quarter. The new box thing doesn't necessarily feel like a slow drip, but the fact that it took almost a year until we actually got a bespoke list for Space Marines, and they're still only the Phobos Marines. You know what I mean? That's, I don't know. It's weird. It's a little weird. I've been converting counts as Genestealer cultists that were basically Ash Waste Escher, so I'm very much on board for this. There you go. Nice. Also been printing a ton of mini hammer. I have 5 6mm armies for GDF now on a GDF. Oh, Grimdark Firefight? I gotcha. Oh, that's cool. Do you think with Warcry change zones that we might see unique warbands for non-chaos factions that are just existing? They're not just existing Age of Sigmar models. And maybe. I mean, that's possible. That'd be kind of cool. I would like to. I got to be honest. So far, like most of these chaos lists that they've come out with that are like special Warcry lists or models or whatever, a lot of them for me have just been like, no. I just, like those guys with the weird, like stretched out like faces, the unmade. I think I was like, nope. New spider dudes. Like I said, Darko Savagers. Those are the first ones I'm like really kind of cool with. I'm like, yeah, these are very cool. Corvus Cabal, I was really interested in as well too. But then I've watched them kind of played, and I'm like, I don't know. I just, yeah, it's hard to say. It would be nice though to see some of that though too. Whether they'll do it or not, I don't know. But yeah, it would be kind of interesting to see some like, yeah, Cities of Sigmar would be cool. I think definitely. Malev is good people, indeed he is. Let's see here. Did you see the GW isn't selling any of the faction books for Warcry on the website, which makes me think big changes are coming? Well, or they could just be repackaging them, maybe. Like they're giving them new covers and stuff like that. Or they're adding in new stuff. There's been new stuff released. So hopefully, if they're like, oh yeah, no, everything's changing and you got to buy all new books and stuff like that, then I'll probably just stop playing Warcry. Well, I'll probably keep playing the old version of Warcry, me and Sam, and that would be about the end of that. And then, yeah, I mean, honestly, that's, if they're going to like do a rug pull to some degree, like they did with Kill Team 2021 again, and they do that with this new game, and I highly doubt they're going to do it. But if they do, that would be a nail in the coffin, at least over here in my camp. What do you think about Necromunda from game design and rules perspective? It's just a bit crunchier than I would like. They've spread things out amongst a bunch of different books more than I would like, though I think that they are starting to tighten that up again. From what I've heard, the most recent book that they've released is supposed to kind of bring all the stuff kind of back together, sort of. GW has a book addiction, so they're going to keep cranking out books as much as possible, and I think that's, being a lousy businessman, I think it's a bad idea. But if I was a good businessman, I'd probably be like, yes, that's exactly what you need to do. But, there you go. It was interesting to me that Moroc's book let you build kill teams that technically can't be built in the Morok box, like they threw the Reavers in. Yeah, yeah, I agree. Back in my day, the teachers used to whip our knuckles with a big meter stick. We should do the same to cheaters in our hobby. Shaky hands, pushing metals too close, bam, crack. I don't think that's a good idea at all. I don't think you should hit people. It just doesn't seem like a good idea. Let's see here. So are there solo tabletop war games? Oh, yeah. Something I can play anytime, even when friends are not available? Yeah. I mean, when we launched Reign in Hell, we made an expansion for it. It's like a pay-what-you-want expansion called the Oculus Spear, which has solo and co-op play built into it. And then it has a special, like, 6-part narrative campaign that you play part 1, and then part 2, and then part 3. It's all, like, you don't just, like, roll randomly a d6 and go, I want to play scenario 5. No, it's designed to be played like a story. But there's tons of games out there, especially now the more indie stuff. You're starting to see that. There's solo play rules for Zona Alpha. There's solo play rules for, well, I mean, 5 Parsecs from Home is basically kind of solo first. And 5 Parsecs is like, you've got 5 Parsecs from Home is the sci-fi version. There's 5 Leagues from the Borderland, which is the fantasy version. There's a post-apocalyptic version, the name of which I cannot remember. But yeah, there's definitely a decent amount of games out there. Rangers of Shadowdeep, it's designed to be played. I mean, you can play them against people, but they're designed to be played solo. So yeah, there's a lot of that stuff out there. Let's see here. If people are splitting hairs over a few measly millimeters, I may need to find another hobby. Yeah, probably so. Let's see here. Grimdark Firefight has been my sci-fi game since Kill Team 21 came out. A guy named Adam ran, not me, different guy named Adam, ran Grimdark Firefight from One Page Rules at TMX, and he had people sit at his table pretty much whenever he was running it, and he was just using, like, I think he was using predominantly all GW terrain and I think mostly GW models. But yeah, he was running it and running demos, and it was well received. So yeah, definitely. I really want to sit down and play it. I haven't, like, I wanted to during TMX, but I can't really play anything during TMX because I'm like running things and, you know, stuff. So there's that. But I do definitely want to sit down and play it. I've messed around with it, like not solo play, but I've been like, okay, well, how does a game loop work? You know what I mean? I like to do that where I sit down and like have some models here, and like, okay, well, so then this guy, if he's going to shoot, you do this, and this is what happens, and this is what, you know, that kind of stuff. You figure out what the game loop is. But sitting down and actually playing the full blown game against somebody, you learn a lot more about the game, I think. So it's important. How did you redesign Warcry miniature agnostic? Oh, I didn't redesign it. I am saying I think it would be a good idea. I'm just saying if they're going to make a new edition, I'm hoping it's technically more of an expansion. Like, I don't want to have to start over with all my models again. Or, you know, I like the way the list building works now with the points and all that kind of stuff. I'm really hoping they don't decide, oh, it's going to be like Kill Teams things where you just, you know, because right now you couldn't do, in my opinion, you could not have as many models as you have available to you in Warcry, but then also make it like Kill Team's rules. One of the reasons I think also that we're seeing with Kill Team, there is no elites and there is no commanders and all those extra add-ons, is because the lists are so like kind of locked in. You take one of these dudes, you take then, you know, you choose 9 more of these dudes, but you can only choose one of each of these, but you could take more, that kind of thing, as opposed to being like, here's 5 pages of Skaven, and you have 1,000 points, and you should have a leader in there. Go to town. You know what I mean? Like, that's what I want. That's that I like. If they were to then say, we're going to do it more like Kill Team, they'd have to chuck 3/4 of all the models that you have available to you, especially from the Age of Sigmar lists, which I don't want them to do. So, have you seen Ravaged Star minis from Mini Wargaming? Yeah, Dave sent me some print samples before the, you know, they're 3D printed. They're not the ones that people bought it wasn't through Kickstarter, GameFound. The ones that people bid on, or not bid on, you know what I'm saying, pledged through GameFound. When you get those, they will be plastic. But I've got some 3D printed ones, not the big power armor guys, but the guys that look more like kind of Trader Guard, actually. Yeah, I've got some of those figures in the basement. My biggest gripe with Underworlds is the power creep and rotation invalidating the stuff I put work into. I hope GW don't keep running this model. Yeah, I agree too. Hello from a sunny northern Sweden. How you doing? Yeah, it's nice and sunny here too. I was just challenged to build a whole table worth of terrain for $30 or less. Said I can use my own paints for it. Easily done. There you go. Nice. Let's see here. I want more of those Stargrave sets by North Star. Great value. Yes. I got the Crew 2 box sort of recently, within the last couple of weeks. And so I'm looking forward to probably rebuilding my captain for my Stargrave crew, because I just don't like the way she turned out. You know what I mean? I used like Imperial Guard, like Cadian body, and then put like a slightly small, like everything from GW, especially the Cadians, they're so chunky. And especially if you compare them now to the Trader Guard are much more realistically proportioned to some degree, which is interesting. But the Cadians are still real thick. And so I put like a normal scale head, like lady head, on a Cadian body, and then it kind of made her look like she was wearing like a big flak vest kind of thing. Like, you know, it worked out pretty well, because I also changed the arms a little bit, made those a little bit skinnier and everything, but it looked like with the torso and the legs, it looked like she was wearing like flak vest armor. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. But something about the pose just didn't turn out right. And I was like, meh. So I think I'm going to rebuild my captain with the Crew 2 stuff, because there's a big thing of what's in the Crew 2 is more women, like, you know, heads for women and stuff like that. And also there's more aliens as well. There were some aliens in the original crew box and the original mercenaries box and stuff like that, but not as many. So they've added more of that too, which I think is cool. Wait, there's a new Warcry coming? Well, we don't know if it's a new edition, if it's an expansion, but they have announced back during Warhammer Fest, which was a while ago, they announced that there was a new thing coming. They've changed the logo. It's going to be leaving the 8 points, and then now this new whatever Warcry is going to be in Gur, which I think is spelled Ghur, I think. Which is like a beast world or a jungle something or other. I don't know exactly. I don't know much about the lore. I'll be honest. Yeah, and then they showed off some of the new models, which are basically guys in like, they have like hats on top of their hats, which is weird. I don't know. They have like a bull helmet, but then it's on top of another helmet. I don't know. Anyway, they also showed off this super cool like centaur, except that instead of having 2 arms, he has 4 arms. He's pretty cool looking. And he's gonna be like some sort of big monster or something that you could use in Warcry, but it's designed for Warcry generally. So yeah, so stuff is coming. We just don't exactly know when or what. But we do know, we know there's a new logo, and we know that they've picked up and moved to Gur. Let's see here. I hope Warcry go sort of the Necromunda way without 78 more books per month. True. I'm on board with that as well. I wonder what this new Warcry box will be going for. Preceding sets were good value, tons of plastic, enough to keep you busy for years. I mean, let's say it's not going to get cheaper, just because that's not the way things are going currently, for sure. Prepping demons for Rain in Hell while listening this morning, hoping to play next weekend. Nice. One-page rules war stuff is the best thing for getting non-wargamer folks into it. It's just so simple and straightforward. I bloody love it. Nice. Hi from Northwest Oklahoma, building my pile of shame starting with Centurions, Assault, and Devastators. Nice. I did, what did I do yesterday? I finished up the bases on my Gloomspite Gits that I've been painting on Twitch. I've been painting on them for what seems like a really long time, but they are now finished. I might even run them today against Sam, because I'm playing against Sam this 3 o'clock this afternoon. So I might run them against Sam this afternoon. I'm not sure yet. It's either them or else it's going to be my Night Haunts again. I do really like running those Night Haunts. Then I also had some terrain I'm working on, some sci-fi terrain work I'm working on for a special project. You could say it might be for our upcoming game. So we have something to use in the battle reports and stuff like that. But I was working on that yesterday, doing a bunch of painting and weathering on some pieces for that. Stuff that I got from TT Combat and some 3D printed stuff and I don't know, just other little bits and pieces. Yeah. They changed the logo? Yeah. Back in at Warhammer Fest. So this is what, late May? May 22nd or something like that, or whenever that was. And they had a big thing. I think it was the Friday afternoon because they did like 4 shows. Remember there was like a 40K one, an Age of Sigmar one. They did a one that was like Warcry Kill Team and something else. It was more skirmishy. Necromunda, I think. And then the last thing that they did, I think on Saturday, was Horus Heresy. Dun dun dun. But the Friday one was about the skirmish games and such like that. And in that, they were talking about a bunch of things, but they showed off, at least they showed the new Warcry logo. Well, hang on. Let me see if I can't. Let's see if I can make this work. We'll go look at it right now. How about that? So we'll go Warhammer community and we'll go to that, and then we won't use the articles feature because that stinks. And instead we'll just type in Warcry into the search, and that works a lot better. I found that out yesterday. Here we go. Boom. Now, let me show you what I'm looking at. And we'll go to this thing. Of course, it didn't come across. Add source. This is how the sausage is made, ladies and gentlemen. Where the heck revealed? Why is that not showing up? Huh. Weird. on the fly. Why am I unable to find... There it is. Oh, shoot. I'm almost there. There. Now it's too small. Okay. Grab this. This is stunning television, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, it's not television, but you know what I'm saying. There we go. Okay, so revealed the new Warcry echoes across a wild Warcry echoes across Warhammer Fest. So that's the new logo right there, because the old logo is, well, different. And so they're going into It's always been set at around the 8 points, the savage center of the mortal realms, where the followers of chaos endeavor to prove themselves worthy, blah, blah, blah. And now they're moving to Gur, I think. It says that someplace. Here are some of the new guys. So here you see where they've got the hat on top of a hat. You've got these guys with the bull helmet, but it's on top of another helmet. You got some other dudes over here. That guy's got, I think he's either a beekeeper or he has a flamethrower. I'm not sure which. But yeah, so these are the new Horns of Hashut, which will be evidently a box. They see the thriving jungles of Gur and want nothing more than to burn them down and to make way. So that guy's not a beekeeper then. Just FYI. Anyway, so yeah. Oh, and then there's this guy who is super dope. I totally want that guy. But yeah, this was all revealed back in, oh gosh, early May, I think. Yeah. So back during Warhammer Fest is when this all went down. And, but like I said, we don't know when it's coming out. We don't know if it's a brand new version or just an update or what's going on, but it's something. And the fact that they're changing the logo also makes me wonder if they're not maybe going to be making it more of an update or something like that, or who is to say. But yeah, so we've got that going for us, which is nice. There we go. Let's see here. I really want to play Warcry, but for 40k. I want flexibility, options, and variety. Then you might want to take a look at Kill Team, because that's kind of what that is. Let's see here. Horsey Heresy? Ooh, there you go. They also showed a Nurgle cultist model from that new warband. Yeah, more recently than Warhammer Fest, but yes, they have. Let's see here. Rogue Trader is the touchstone I return to remind myself what it is about this hobby I love so much. Never fails to rekindle that spark. That book is a lot of fun. That earliest book is a lot of fun. They teased one new guy from the opposing warband, too. I hope this has some new chaotic beasts. We know it has new terrain types. Yeah, I'm assuming, yeah, both of those things, for sure. Hashut is in the god of the cast dwarves? Evidently, yeah. I think so. Yeah. That dude's got hella limbs. He's almost like a spider, because he's got 4 legs and 4 arms, which makes him basically a spider. Except that he's a centaur, I guess. I don't know. He's pretty cool looking. But yeah, so that's the stuff that was announced some time ago at Warhammer Fest. And we still don't know a ton more, other than there's been a couple other little, like, hey, here's a new model for another thing or whatever, but that's about it. We're hoping to find out some more soon. Like I said, I'm hoping that we see some stuff coming out, hopefully in, like I said, if I had to guess, if I was a betting man, I'd put money on late July, just because the last 2 Kill Teams have come out at late July. Warcry came out in late July. That seems to be the kind of the what they want to do. But, you know, they could also just say, you know, that Adam guy, he's dumb, and then come out with it in August or something. Or again, we could also have more supply line global shipping shenanigans or whatever, and they were planning on coming out with it in late July, but it doesn't actually get to stores until September. I mean, that's a possibility as well. An itchy face. But yeah, so something eventually, it seems like the case. I use cheap rattle cans for most of my terrain. I don't want to waste my mini paints on my terrain. I am cheap that way. Yeah, I have a tendency to do, well, it depends on the size of the terrain. I was mainly working on scatter terrain yesterday. So I was using, hobby paints and stuff like that because it was a lot of like little sci-fi crates and this and that and the other kind of stuff. When I'm doing bigger things, it depends. I have a tendency sometimes use craft paints like from the craft store or whatever. Acrylics still, but craft paints can be real helpful that way. Horseman Spider. What fresh hell is this? Well, I mean, yeah, he's kind of, yeah. Should not Realm of Beasts be Gur instead of Gur? See, that's what I was thinking, honestly. Like, maybe that's why they call him that. Yeah. I would consider buying some of those 28mm scale tank models for bolt action. I could do some crazy stuff for tomorrow's war with those, at least a couple. Yeah, I don't know why, but I like 28mm tanks, but I would like to almost make them like post-apocalyptic. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think that'd be kind of interesting to just do some fun models that way. Maybe even almost like little mini dioramas. You know what I mean? Have you ever painted not for tabletop, for dioramas or display only? As it turns out, no. As I was just saying that, not really, no. There have been things that I have painted that I'm like, I don't have a specific game that I'm painting this for, but I am still painting it to a tabletop ideal or whatever, because I'm just like, well, let's just get this, you know what I mean? Like, I'm doing it in that situation so that I can, like, at some point play it on a tabletop somewhere. Sometimes there's just a model you're like, I really like this, but I'm not going to sit and spend tons and tons of time on it, but I do want it so I can set it someplace. And then when there's times when I'm like, I need a Yeti, I'd be like, I got a Yeti, and there you go, Yeti. But generally when I'm painting things for games that I already know I'm going to play or something along those lines. As far as actual display, no. I've kicked it around. There are times when I will spend a little extra time on a hero or a leader or something like that can get, I don't want to say display quality, but it's definitely a bit higher than tabletop, at least in my skill level. But generally, no, I don't generally do that kind of stuff. I'm not a display painter particularly. Though sometimes I wonder about it. I 3D printed my first tank, a Sherman Russ GF. Nice. My only problem with rattle cans is the extra steps to seal the foam I use so it doesn't melt. Oh, sure, yeah. If you're like using it for terrain, I mean, what a lot of people do is they'll use like a matte finish Mod Podge. Is it called Mod Podge? Mod Podge? Whatever that stuff is. You get that at the craft store too. You build something out of, whether it's like the white styrofoam that's got the little balls in it, or it's the pink styrofoam stuff that the people use on the outside of their houses and stuff like that. That pink stuff can also come in blue and green. Sometimes it depends. But that, whatever type of foam like that you use to build something out of, most rattle cans, not all, but most rattle cans will melt the foam. Now, that being said, Army Painter made a line of rattle cans that is designed not to eat the foam. This is not the same stuff that their normal rattle cans are made out of. So they have, like, Army Painter has spray can primer that is matched to a bunch of their regular paint colors. Those will still eat the foam. It's not the paint, it's the propellant that actually eats the foam, from what I understand. That being said, they also have a line of spray primers that are designed to be sprayed over foam. What the heck do they call their line of terrain making stuff? Dungeon something? Dungeon Builder? Dungeon Master? Something like that. Like, they have they have these kits you can buy and that just have all kinds of little thin sheets of styrofoam for building, like, dungeon, like, hallways and doing stuff like that. They aim it a little bit more towards the RPG crowd, to be perfectly honest with you, but they also make like an electric wire, heat cutter thingy for foam, and they make a bunch of stuff. But they also make a line of rattle cans that are designed to be sprayed over that same foam that they sell, because it won't eat the foam, because they put something different in the propellant, I guess. There are also other cans out there, rattle cans, that are also will do that. There's some sort of textured stuff that I bought that does not ruin the foam, but most rattle cans will melt the foam because of the propellant, whatever's in that, some sort of solvent or something. I don't know. Anyway, that's something to keep track of, though. But you can also combat that, again, like I said, by just putting Mod Podge over your foam, waiting for it to dry, and then spray priming it, and that'll work too. Or you can just you know, put paint in the Mod Podge and put that on with a brush, and then boom, you're already ready to go. I think that I got that idea from Black Magic Craft on YouTube. Spider Centaur does whatever a Spider Centaur does. It's true. It's a very good point. Let's see here. Had the creators over of Black Powder Red Earth 28mm, and they ran some demos. Great fast-paced, small model count skirmish game. Cool. I think that Sam painted some stuff for Black Powder Red Earth. I think. I could be wrong. Mod Podge mixed with black craft paint. Yep. That can work too. I'm down for a Cold War post-apocalyptic war game, sort of what North Korea worked. I know that Gaddis Gaming has got a kind of post-apocalyptic sort of Cold War 15mm war game right now on Kickstarter, I believe. So you could, and I forget what it's called. Something Crystallum, something like that. I've seen those terrain primers. Couldn't tell you the cost, as that game store never puts prices on 80% of their stock. That's, yeah, well, it's sometimes a bummer. I agree. Been 3D printing most of my terrain lately, and I usually rattle can it. Oh, yeah, you can definitely rattle can. I mean, I rattle can most of my terrain. I just prefer, like, I've got an airbrush, and I love to do airbrush priming on models. But on terrain, especially plastic kits of terrain, I really generally prefer to put rattle can on it because it sticks better over time. And you have a tendency to do more. You have a tendency to beat your terrain a little bit more than you do your miniatures. So having something that sticks as a primer better is a good idea. Ty Adam just slayed another 8 models this weekend. One less emptied box this week. Nice. Good to hear. I used spray paint on a large piece of styrofoam and made a cool Martian landscape for a cool project. I mean, if you want it to melt, then that's cool. You know, I mean, if that's the plan. I think it's Dungeon Master. Yeah, I mean, it might be Dungeon Master. It's the stuff from Army Painter. I'm kind of surprised by that. How do you get demos of a game running at a convention? It's not like I can just plop down and start playing. I mean, well, generally when you go to a convention, they will have a thing where events can like sign up. So if you're like, at least with TMX, and we're real small, so it's not like what regular conventions do. We just have a form that says, hey, if you want to come and run games here at the convention, fill out this form, and you put in your name, and you put it in the name of your event and the game system and a short description and how many people can play, and pick a time roughly when you want to try to play, and then we'll put you into the schedule, and then people, when they're looking at the website, could be like, oh cool, at 3:00 this game's going to be played, I've been interested in that, I want to try that out, or that sounds cool, or whatever, and then they know. So that's generally the way it is. You can do pickup games at some conventions depending on the convention, but then nobody knows, you know what I mean? Then it becomes a situation of hopefully you're able to convince, like in that situation, if you're doing a pickup game, even if you're not doing a pickup game, it's still a good idea to have like the best looking table that you can make, because people will walk by and be like, huh, that's kind of cool looking, what's that all about? And then you can start telling them, and then you might get a demo run. So if you show up to a convention and you have like just nothing good for terrain, and your models are unpainted, and you're not on the list to be, and you don't expect to get any traction. You have to kind of do the work ahead of time, get yourself on the list. If they do that, most events do, because that's the thing, is that the people who run the games at the game conventions are the people who make the convention happen. There are admin people who are doing the stuff and taking tickets and telling people where the bathrooms are and stuff like that. But without the GMs, you're all just standing around a room looking at each other. You know what I mean? The GMs are there to be like, hey, I'm running this game, and there you go. So yeah, the GMs are super important to be able to run that stuff. So any convention that's like, yeah, no, we're not looking for GMs, they're probably a tournament and not a convention. You know what I mean? Like pretty much every convention out there is looking for people to run stuff, because they don't have the ability to run the convention and run all the games at the same time. So going to be playing my first 40K league starting this week, and got to get my Orc Speed mob primed and painted. Nice. Luke's APS had a great video where he used a pastry torch to melt some foam board to make a river. Pastry torch. Oh, yeah, for like creme brulee and stuff. Yeah. I'm like, I haven't had enough coffee yet. I'm like, it's a torch made out of pastry? What? And I'm like, yeah, okay. Yeah, never mind. I got you. Let's see here. You can put a layer of gesso primer on the foam and then rattle can to prevent the melting. Yeah, gesso will do that. Mod Podge will do the same. Yeah. I wonder which one's more expensive. I feel like Mod Podge would be cheaper, but I could be wrong. Like gesso, I think has chalk in it. Well, I think it used to have chalk in it. It may not anymore, but back in the day, I think it did. It's Game Master. It's the Army Painter terrain system. That's what it's amazing that that's the name, because I would kind of almost think that, well, is it Game Master or Dungeon Master? Because Dungeon Master I would think would be trademarked or something like that by TSR, but Game Master is a different story. That's a good point. I used to use a wire wheel in a drill to contour styrofoam for hills and such. Messy but realistic looking. I remember a long time ago when I was in college, I was friends with one of the professors. Me and a couple other guys, we would go out to, like, we had this professor's night class, like at, I don't know, 7:30 or 6:20 or something like that, or whatever, on like Tuesdays and Thursdays. And very frequently on Thursdays, we would go out to eat with this professor. It initially started off, we were just going to find something to eat, and then we bumped into him someplace, like, he was like, where are you guys going? We're like, oh, we're get some eat. He's like, oh, you mind if I come along? And then we just started going out to eat with this guy on Thursday nights. Anyway, so we are going to, he gets done with his class at like, I don't know, 5:30 or something like that, his previous class. And it's a class where he is teaching not art majors, but he's teaching education majors about art. So it's all education majors, not art majors, but you're teaching about art. And he is teaching them about, they are sculpting stuff out of white styrofoam. And they're using like these big rasps. And so they would take layers and layers of white styrofoam and glue it all together and all that kind of stuff. And then the next whatever day that they got together for class, they're using these big rasps and they're kind of rounding it all down. But those little balls that from the white styrofoam are just everywhere, stuck to everywhere, all over the floor, on all the tables, everything. And it just takes forever to clean it all up. Now, this guy's also a jeweler. This, like, his side job, he's a professor, art professor, but he's also a jeweler, and he does like really cool custom stuff. And so we, are waiting for his class to get done, and the place is covered in those little white balls. And he's like, oh, hey, check in my briefcase over there. He's like, I got this new piece I'm working on and everything like that. And then just take a look at it. I think it's really cool, because I was taking a metals class at that time. So I go over and I'm like, oh, cool. And so me and my friend Tom, who go to dinner with this guy, JD, he's the professor, we're looking at this piece that he's working on, and it's like an earring that kind of goes like up your ear kind of, but it has like this big stone in it. And usually when you're working on a piece like that, you may not have the actual stone in there. You have some sort of cubic zirconia thing. There's like a, stopgap until it's time to put the right stone in there. Or maybe it's just going to be, cubic zirconia. It depends. So we're looking at this piece, and it's like, it's in progress. You can tell and stuff like that. It's not particularly, burnished or primed, or not primed, burnished or whatever. Anyway, long story short is I wanted to flip it over to look at the back, and the stone falls out on the floor. This floor that is covered with these little white, styrofoam things all over the place. And I'm like, whoops, all right. So Tom and I get Diesel. Diesel's being fussy. I can't see him either. He's like banging on a cardboard box. Anyway, long story short, we do eventually find this rock and put it back into the actual setting, and then we put it back in his briefcase. And then later on at dinner, we find out that was not a cubic zirconia. That was about a 2-carat diamond that he was just using in there, that we dropped on the floor in this room that is just completely awash in these tiny little white dots. And but somehow, luckily, we found it. Yeah, we were like, so you're just carrying that around in your briefcase? He's like, yeah. He's like, I got a knife. And we're like, that's okay. So anyway, there you go. Let's see here. What do you suppose is the best way to interest grown children into mini wargaming? I am not a parent, so I don't know that I have a good answer on that. Maybe if they seem like they're interested in art at all, maybe get them into the painting part first. I think that's my only good answer. I gotta be honest with you. Hope to see you at Salute 50 next year if you can make it across the pond. I would like to go across the pond eventually. Doesn't Army Painter have a licensing deal with Wizards of the Coast? I would have sworn they were selling official paints. They have done some partnerships. I think that partnership may have stopped now. They've also had partnerships with like Star Wars. Like there's Star Wars paint sets you can buy that are made by Army Painter. But there were definitely Dungeons and Dragons ones. But I think those have stopped because I think now are Dungeons and Dragons now working with WizKids? I don't remember. The current the current Wizards of the Coast paints are Nolzur's something. I don't know who makes those. That sounds like WizKids. Because these new frameworks from Dungeons and Dragons WizKids, these are Nolzur's whatever is the pre-primed ones that are already built. These frameworks are the new ones that are there's like a sprue in there. Craft foam board and pink insulation foam luckily doesn't have the foam balls like cooler foam has. That's true. Do you think GW will give us skirmish rules for Horus Heresy? What would you like to see in those rules? I would love to see skirmish rules for Horus Heresy. That being said, I've already started messing around. I was talking about this earlier. There is there's someone who has made basically kill team rules for Horus Heresy. You do a search for ossified mods. Ossified is covered in bone is basically what ossified means. It's like OSSIFIED, ossified mods. If you do a Google search for ossified mods, you will find their Kill Team Age of Darkness, which is basically an add-on. It's a free add-on you can download from them, and it has stats. It's very well done. Like, it looks like a GW product, in my opinion, but it has all the stats and all the cool stuff and whatnot for Horus Heresy things and putting them into Kill Team. So I've already downloaded a copy, and I'm thinking about doing Blood Angels versus Death Guard. So yeah. Eventually had a brainwave and got my shop vac going while I was using the wire wheel. Kind of a two-handed job keeping the styrofoam in place with my foot. But there's a will, there's a way. Yeah, I can understand that. Movies are a good gateway to gaming. Yeah, I could see that too. Yeah. During the production of the Neverending Story 2, the valley containing the villain's castle was shaped with a chainsaw and a hot wire cutter. Yeah, makes sense. Yeah. What are some good sources of information on new Skirmish and mini agnostic games? Websites, channels? I mean, I talk about them a decent amount. You know, I've so far done a video about Zona Alpha and also about Space Weirdos, which are both two of my favorite games that are miniatures agnostic and whatnot. I also like Planet 28 and the stuff from Mammoth Miniatures. I don't know if there's a good video channel or even there may be some blogs out there that talk specifically just about skirmish stuff, but I'm not sure. Maybe a podcast. There used to be a podcast called Skirmish Supremacy, I think, but I don't know that they do that anymore. There was another one too that was about skirmish games only too, but I don't know if they're still. It's hard to, you know, if you don't get good response to the creations that you make and put out there, blog posts, YouTube channel, podcast, whatever, if you're not getting feedback and stuff like that from people, you're not getting people to like, oh, this is cool or whatever, you're not seeing views, you're not seeing downloads, whatever, it becomes kind of difficult to keep pushing forward sometimes. It's important to kind of do that if you do want it to grow, because it does take time. This is not like, I've done my second, podcast edition or whatever. And now, therefore, I'm making big Spotify money or something like that. That's not the way it works. It takes a lot of time. Let's see here. For free RPG Day, WizKids have some kind of paint set. So yes, it does seem like they have some kind of paint license for paint. Yeah, like I said, I'm pretty sure that they're working with WizKids. And WizKids, the thing is that's interesting too, I've seen those paint bottles from WizKids. They're half the size of like a normal like Vallejo or Army Painter, dropper bottle. They're like real short. And I think about half, maybe a little bigger than half the size. And that's interesting to me. But I suspect they're looking at it from the aspect of, you're probably not going to be painting as many people. If you're painting stuff for, let's say, Dungeons and Dragons, maybe you're painting your own character or maybe a couple others. So you don't need to give you big honking bottles full of stuff because you're not going to need that much paint. Maybe that's the idea, but I don't know what they're charging for it. So I don't know if there's a huge savings involved there or not. Let's see here. Besides Frostgrave, are there other Osprey games fun? I think so. I think there have been some really good ones out there. I'm interested in Dragon Rampart. I know there's a new edition of Dragon Rampart that is either about to come out or is out. I believe there's a second edition. I would check that out. From watching some of the WizKids D&D videos, I believe they use Vallejo paints. So it used to be the earliest of the primed models that came out from WizKids. You know, the like those models when they first came out, they said they were primed with Vallejo, but they don't say that anymore. They say they're primed, but they don't say primed with Vallejo. So I don't know what's going on there. I mean, I don't know if there was a partnership that's not there anymore or not. I'm not sure. The Nolzur's paints are Army Painter. They also have some prismatic paint coming, but I don't know what they are. See, I hadn't heard that. I thought that Army Painter, because Army Painter had been working with them, and I thought they weren't anymore, but I could be wrong. Prismatic paints are Vallejo. I get you, yeah. Dragon Rampart is very good. New Lion Rampart. Maybe it was Lion Rampart that's the new edition coming out. Yeah, I think you're right. Lion Rampant is like historical. Dragon Rampant is fantastical. So you know, wizards and elves and whatever, whereas Lion Rampant is like no wizards and no elves and stuff like that. And then, yeah, I've heard that there's going to be a Xenos Rampant, which I think is interesting. I've liked the WizKids Vallejo sets. The bottles are small, so the price isn't bad, and then I'll buy the full size when I want more of it. That makes sense. I can see that. Yeah, like it's not a bad idea to do the small ones. I think if you're like, you know, obviously a person who's been doing this for a long time does not want the small ones, but if you're just getting into it, it's a smart plan because then it's if they're as long as they're charging less for it, then it's good, you know. What are your thoughts on Mantic's Dead Zone? I have the 3rd edition book, or books, I guess. I have not had a good chance to sit down and read them. I have a bunch of the terrain from way back in the day. You know, I have a bunch of painted, finished terrain, and I have a bunch... Actually, when the original Dead Zone Kickstarter went up, I was like... At the time, I was like, meh, that's cool. I like the terrain a lot, but I don't know if I'm interested in the game. And as if they were reading my mind, like 2 days later, they're like, oh, we added a new pledge level and you can pay like, I don't know, whatever it was, and just get a buttload of terrain. So I did that. And in lo and behold, I did eventually get a buttload of terrain. It was like a lot of terrain, like a big box full of stuff. I was like, oh gosh. And I put a bunch of it together, not all of it, obviously, but I did put a decent amount together and painted it and all that kind of stuff. And my original plan was to, and then long story short, I didn't do the Kickstarter, but then eventually I bought the Dead Zone 1 box anyway for reasons. So then I painted up the Enforcers and I painted up some of the Plague and I had some terrain and we were going to play it at Adepticon 2015 or 16 or something like that. And I set up the board and all that stuff. And then we were like, okay, now let's start reading the rules. And then we stopped. The rules were not that bad, I don't think. I don't know. They were a little confusing. Also, we were a little drunk. I'm not going to lie. And instead, we played a game that was kind of like Jenga, except with like a plastic, like a little plastic tree. And then you had a little plastic axe. It's called Tick-Tock Woodman? No. Well, Tock. I forget what it's called. And it's a fun little game. Click-Clack Lumberjack. That's what it's called. I think Tick-Tock Woodman was the original Korean version of that game. But the Americanized version of it, as far as name is concerned, but otherwise it looked identical, was Click-Clack Lumberjack, which was a lot of fun. And anyway, so we never got to play it, actually. But I do have, you know, some Plague and some Enforcers, and I've got terrain and all that kind of stuff. And then the 2nd edition came out, and then I got that book, and then I never got a chance to read it, and then the 3rd edition already has come out, and now who knows. A lot of people talk about it in chat. I don't know anybody in this area that plays it, so I would have to do a bunch of work to make it happen. I don't know. I'm interested. It's just it's difficult. Just thumbing through the book and not sitting down and reading, it still seems like it's a little bit more than I'm looking for in a skirmish game. Just like there's just I don't know, but I give them credit because they keep cranking on it and stuff like that, and it seems to be more popular back over in the UK, I think, than here. But yeah. Have you tried Project Z from Warlord Games? Would love to hear your thoughts on the rules. I have not. No. Project Z from Warlord Games. I haven't. Picked up a copy of A Song of Blades and Heroes and a Viking fantasy skirmish called Blood Eagle a few days ago. Both look like great skirmish games. Song of Blades and Heroes is great. I am not familiar with Blood Eagle. That's cool, though. Bought a small box set of 6 Vallejo skin flesh paints. I like the tone of the highlights. Nice. Thermal cut tables. Get the construction type, not the craft type. It may cost more, but it is a way better choice. Looks like there's a three-way partnership with Gale Force 9 doing licensed D&D minis and Army Painter doing licensed paints. You can buy them as sets. Weird. Huh. Warcry, more terrain with big boats and boulders and scenery and some sea monsters. That would be kind of cool. I gotta be honest, when we play Warcry, we still use the cards, where you like, okay, well, this is the victory conditions, and here's the twist, and here's the, all that kind of stuff. But we don't use the terrain card anymore because it's always so little terrain. We always want a lot more terrain, so we just ignore that, make the terrain look cool, and then use the like the victory condition thing, the deployment thing, and the twist thing. But that 4th card for like, and this is how you should set up the terrain. We don't do that anymore because it's just it. Like I said, so frequently it's just still, if you follow the rules and go, okay, and I set everything up cool, and you're like, wow, there's a lot of open space. That we want it to, it just looks cooler when there's more stuff on the table, so we like that. I'm just a big fan in skirmish games in general. If you're playing a skirmish game, you should have a lot of terrain on the board, like a lot. It just makes it a better game. If you're playing an army style game where you're moving squads of stuff around and vehicles and stuff like that, well, obviously you probably don't want to go down that road. I get that. It makes sense. But for skirmish model games, I would definitely always go, yeah, I got enough army or terrain on here, but I could use some more, and just put more terrain on the table. I think you'll find it makes a more interesting game, at least in my opinion. Tyrant is a nickname beholders have, probably for some trademark reason. Yeah, that's probably true, and you're not wrong. Good old Tyrant. Their beholder has the D&D logo on it, but there might be a different type of Tyrant. Like a beholder might be beholder, and an Tyrant might be something different. That's a good question. I don't know. I have not played D&D in a long time. We did play it sometimes during lunch for a while at work, back in, I don't know, probably 2018, 2017, somewhere in there. That was probably the last time that I've played D&D. And then previous to that was probably early 2000s. So, but it was my first game that I played, my first like nerd game, like it's not just like, Monopoly or Sorry or something like that. Like 5th grade is when I first started with D&D, and then in middle school I played some BattleTech. We didn't even have miniatures; we just had those little cardboard standees. Yeah, and then my first actual like miniatures game was Space Hulk, 1st edition. My friend Peter showed it to me, and we played it in college, and then Peter has run it at TMX. Like every year we've had TMX, including this year, he ran 1st edition Space Hulk, like the version, like the actual box that I originally played with him back when we were in college. So that's a lot of fun too. Speaking of terrain, how many here have tried to make gaming mats from canvas and acrylic caulk? I've never heard of that. That's interesting. I've heard of people using acrylic paint on canvas, but never caulk. Interesting. Eye Tyrant is a beholder type in the D&D 5th edition monster manual. That makes, there you go. My next scenery project will be buildings for Battletech with plastic boxes as the basis, styrene strip, which is hard for me to say as it turns out, and sheet, and a few bits from the bits box. Nice. Yeah, I, building terrain is a lot of fun, and I enjoy it, and I need to do more of it. I have a bunch of 3D printed stuff that I want to be able to get done painting. I've got a lot of stuff I want to get done painting, and I keep doing it. But there's not enough hours in the day. Well, not enough free hours in the day. Well, folks, it's 11 o'clock here on my clock, and so I want to thank folks for coming by and hanging out and having a good time, I hope. Maybe you got some hobby done. Maybe you were just doing some chores or just hanging out, relaxing. That's very cool. I'm hoping that we're going to find out more about the new Warcry, such as it is, with the new logo, moving everything to Gur. I'm assuming, like, I expect, like, all of the different cabals and stuff like that to get a bunch of, like, U-Hauls and, like, 2 men in a truck and, like, loading up all their stuff and then driving out of the 8 points and heading over to Gur. I don't know. There must be a highway there, I'm assuming. That's how you get there. Anyway, so we'll be looking forward to that, and we'll find out more hopefully soon. Like I said, hopefully this summer. But we'll see you again in 2 weeks here on the show. Otherwise, if you're interested, if you got nothing going on tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Central, you can come and hang out and watch me over at Twitch. Twitch.tv/tabletopminions. Monday nights, 7 p.m. Central for 3 hours. Friday mornings, 10 a.m. Central for 3 hours. And I'm going to be starting a new project, painting a cool skeleton assassin guy and a fishman with a big pinchy claw, which is also fun. So thanks again for hanging out and chatting, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.